Hi, I'm Chris Gio from Merchant Method, and you are watching Merchant Method Trend Reports. These trend reports are specifically for independent merchants, whether you are a retailer, a maker, or a small batch manufacturer. And what I do is I combine the industry trends that I'm seeing, the news that I'm reading, with experience-based training so that you can really start to build more retail profit so that you can run a sustainable business with more ease. As you know, I am reading articles online, I'm flipping through magazines, I'm comparing business news, industry news with people that I know, and every once in a while I'll find an article that is designed specifically for independent merchants. It's written specifically with you in mind. But those articles tend to be geared toward marketing slash social media slash advertising, kind of in that bucket, or general entrepreneurship and leadership. So typically in these trend reports, what I'm doing is really shaping and forming the information in a way that is really valuable. I hope is valuable to you. But I was reading an article 2 weeks ago and I bolt upright because it was so fascinating to me, and it had nothing to do with retail and everything to do with artificial intelligence, but it's really colored my perspective for the past 2 weeks and is the catalyst for this week's trend report titled Outperforming Artificial Intelligence: 5 Ways to Truly Differentiate Yourself from Tech-Focused Retailers. And what I mean by tech-focused retailers is not companies that sell technology, but large retailers like Amazon, or even well-capitalized tech-focused startups like the Black Techs. So that's what we're talking about today. Really, this idea of outperforming artificial intelligence sounds so lofty, and it sounds so big, and it sounds almost impossible. But as I was doing more research, I came across a book by an author, Marty Neumeier. He is an expert in branding and in creative thinking, and in business leadership in general. And he published a book in 2012 called The 5 Talents for the Robotic Age. And he really walks his readers through the humanity and these 5 specific talents that we have that are going to allow us to continue to outperform artificial intelligence and outperform robots. The connection I found is how do we continue to do the work that we do and feel really comfortable and feel like we're in more of a unique space or in a blue ocean space, and not feel like we're rushing to keep up from a capital perspective or a resource perspective with our tech-focused counterparts. So if you receive Merchant Method Trend Report bonuses, basically what you received before 2 p.m. Pacific is a summary of what this trend report is about, as well as all of the articles, all of the references, some inspiration that I found in preparing for this trend report. So if you'd like more information, sign up for trend report bonuses. They're very, very interesting and inform you in advance of watching these reports so that you can ask your questions live. And all that you need to do to sign up is to sign up on our Facebook page, Merchant Method. So I'm going to provide my takeaways from Marty Neumeier's book, as well as really help frame what these 5 talents mean as an independent merchant. And to help really connect the dots between what you're doing and what you spend a lot of time focusing on, what you might be struggling with, or what you might find the most joy in doing the work that you do with these 5 talents, so that you can really help yourself see and understand how they are very meaningful as you work to really differentiate yourself from the other retailers. All right, so before we even get to what the 5 talents are, I want to talk through what Neumeier calls a robot curve. And so just imagine a most beautiful, long, tall waterfall. I imagine a waterfall on Kauai every single time I think of this analogy. And he describes the work as having 5 distinct phases before it goes from truly original, truly of a human, to, or it's 4 phases, to work that becomes outsourced to a robot. So in this highest phase of the curve is creative work. So think through what creative work actually means. It's very unique, it's highly imaginative, it is for sure non-routine, and it cannot be automated, right? It's very, very original. Once that creative work gets really well understood, once it's studied, then it becomes skilled work. Right, so think of a master and an apprentice. In any industry, a master artisan and an apprentice, a master tattooer and an apprentice, a master hairstylist and an apprentice. In any art or skill. Once the creative work gets understood, it becomes skilled work, and that's where that work is really talent driven. It's studied, it's professional, it's a little bit directed. Once that skilled work becomes very well understood, it becomes rote work, right? It becomes managed, almost even managed down or managed out. It's work that can for sure be outsourced, or you can bring someone on, hire someone to do that work. There's a lot of routine, and the person who does it, you can interchange that person. It's not, the ability to do that work is no longer held with the skilled worker or even the creative worker. And once that rote work gets really, really understood, it becomes robotic, right? So it's automated, there's algorithms, there's computers, and you can even purchase a solution to get that work done. So in this waterfall, this cascading waterfall of types of work, what Neumeier suggests is that we want to keep aiming for the very highest point of that waterfall, and if we keep working towards and fine-tuning our traits in this really top area of creative work, we'll be ahead of the robots. It's so funny to say, but it's funny because it's true, because we're living in the future. But really, he's asking us to work in this area. And this area of creative work, these traits, he calls metaskills. And really the best way for me to describe what a metaskill is to first have us think about what metacognition is. And, metacognition is this higher level awareness or higher level skill of knowing what you're feeling, right? Of having a true awareness of what you're feeling. So think through like a young child who may not realize that why they're feeling stressed, or why they're upset, or why they're sad. And as you grow older and you develop these metacognitive skills, you can understand you're stressed because there's a loud noise outside, or you're stressed because your best friend fought with you. Meta skills are also these higher level skills that allow you to operate in this creative piece of the robot curve. So here are the 5 meta skills, and then I'll talk through them and then also illustrate what they mean for retail. So skill number 1 is feeling. Skill number 2 is seeing. Skill number 3 is dreaming. Skill number 4 is making, and skill number 5 is learning. So what I'm looking at back there, I'm going to show you, is I finally got my dry erase board in my home studio, so I'm really excited about that. Okay, so feeling is really empathy and intuition. So when you think through intuition, it's coming to a conclusion without using logic, or without relying on logic, right? Like if someone knows something intuitively, they have it worked towards applying logic. They're working with their feelings, what they feel to be true. And the way that I think about empathy is your ability to feel something vicariously, right? So if I am feeling empathy with a coworker, I can feel their feelings. I'm working to feel their feelings vicariously through them. The way I like to think about this meta skill of feeling within a retail environment is challenging ourselves to refresh our perspective on how a customer views our business. Really to approach our business with this new, clear point of view, you know, to rub out the sleepy, to like rub away any crustiness, and to approach it brand new, of that experience, and to not gloss over things because you walk by them all the time. That's an amazing skill to have every time you walk into your business, every time you walk into your store. Start from the outside, from the sidewalk, all the way in, and maybe really break the habit of going right to your desk or right to the back office, so right to the cash route. If you do, come back out and experience it more thoughtfully. I also like to think about feeling from an empathetic perspective towards your employees. You know, you are an expert at what you do. You know the most about your business, and think through what it's like, what it was like to be brand new, to be new to your customer or newer to your customer, to be newer to your store, newer to the technology, newer to the process, and challenge yourself to say, hey, is new hire orientation enough to truly orient someone, to have them feel anchored in the business and in the space, anchored to the customer? Is new hire orientation enough, or is there something else we can do to help my new employee or help my team members feel more anchored? I myself believe that retail intuition, you know, when someone has really good gut and instinct, retail gut and instinct is in direct relation to the ability to empathize with your customer, and those that have a very well practiced sense of empathy have also a really good instinct in the business. That's my feeling. So, you know, I think about the difference between someone doing the right thing, making the right choice for the customer, aligned with the brand values in a gray situation, versus someone who does things right. Right? Someone who does things right can follow rules and directions, but the person who does the right thing, given you know, the conflict or the lack of information, they're following their instinct, and they're being very empathetic. So I like to think that those are related. Trait 2, seeing. So seeing is what he calls systems thinking, or seeing parts and whole independently and at the same time. So you may think of it as like pulling up from the forest and getting the 5,000 foot view or the 1,000 foot view. But beyond just being able to see from a higher point of view, systems thinking and truly seeing is understanding each individual component, how the components relate to each other, and how the components impact each other and impact the bigger picture. So, you know, I would think through, you know, why might you always be called upon by your employees, or why do you get like called on your day off, or, you know, people come to you to help solve problems because you are really good at seeing. You're able to see parts of the whole, how those parts relate to each other. So when you're thinking through how do you even transition some of that responsibility of asking, or of being asked all the questions, or being asked what to do, or being asked to troubleshoot, is how can you better train, or how can you provide more information or more resources so that your team can see how the individual parts are related and see the whole picture. Really what you're trying to do is retrain someone on your team to go from, I don't know what to do, what do I do next, and then what do I do after that, to I've done A and B, and I'm not quite sure, I might need some additional training to understand why I should be approaching C this way. Skill 3 is dreaming. I love dreaming. It's applied imagination. So it really is about, the way Neumeier describes it is, originality by definition can't be recreated. And he believes that originality is a function of both knowledge and imagination. And depending on how much knowledge you're able to display and how much imagination you're able to display, you can reach a truly, truly original idea. On the other end, if you have very little knowledge and very little imagination, you might be putting forth an idea that is only new to you. So he says that, originality is knowledge times information. So, in his book, he talks a bit about brainstorming and the difference between brainstorming without constraints, like big dreaming brainstorming, softball brainstorming, versus brainstorming with constraints and non-negotiables, or hardball brainstorming, and letting yourself think through this space between dreaming big and having constraints. Because in the space of dreaming big and having constraints, you will be coming up with other ways to dream or other iterations, really challenging what you know to be true or what you think to be true. Skill or trait 4 is making, right? So Neumeier believes that the Descartes philosophy of I think therefore I am is no longer valid, because AI, poetry is getting written, music is getting composed. So if, creativity is getting replicated, then what is it that allows us to be ahead of artificial intelligence? And so in the article, there's this fantastic article that was published in the New York Times in January. I'm going to share this article in the link, but I want to flash the title to you. It's called From Hands to Heads to Heart, written by Thomas L. Friedman, and it was published on January 4th this year. In the article, the author quotes Dov Seidman, who's the CEO of LNR, and Seidman says, "Our highest self-conception needs to be redefined from I think, therefore I am, to I care, therefore I am. I hope, therefore I am. I imagine, therefore I am. I am ethical, therefore I am. I have purpose, therefore I am. I pause and reflect, therefore I am." So Neumeier advocates that design thinking really moves away from I know this, now I'm going to do it, and adding in this interim step of I know this, so let me prototype it, and let me test it, and then let me do it. And so he really suggests that we move to this iterative process. I am a firm believer in that. I teach that to my clients, that we need to find steps in between present state and dream state and come up with these smaller versions to actually make and actually test. So here's a really simple example. Oftentimes clients have really stationary point of sale systems behind a cash wrap, either because the machine itself is so giant or because they have a fixed floor system. And moving through and moving to a mobile point of sale system, on a phone or through a tablet, that activity of just transitioning over is a big activity. So instead of transitioning with a hard deadline, could you transition with a soft deadline and maybe run 2 point of sale systems to test how customers respond to it, to test the type of training required in order to make the transition smooth and to help the customer move along with it, before completely cutting off the opportunity to fine-tune the process. Another example is creating roles for excellent performers, right? So if you're creating a role for an excellent performer or trying to promote them and offering them a promotion, how do you transition or how do you create that role in such a way that allows you the time to really shape and test it and decide, is that right, before you really lock it in? And the fifth skill is the skill of learning. And so Neumeier argues that this is the most important skill. He, refers to it as the opposable thumb on the hand, and that it's the skill that allows you to really access and develop the other 4 traits. Learning how you learn is such a key factor in staying ahead of this, what he calls his robot curve. So I would suggest that it really is about staying agile, about scheduling time and space for yourself to explore, time and space for yourself to actually move through these meta skills. What tends to happen is we rush through to a conclusion before the test or before the idea has even had time to simmer, to really spread out your decision-making points, to better understand where the opportunity is and to challenge your conventional wisdom. So really for retailers, I would suggest looking and seeking for training and support, either training and support that's directly related to the need that you have, or a very different, unrelated experience that allows you to understand a different way that you can learn. So oftentimes, for example, I like to take classes at a community cooking school in the neighborhood. I'm not a big cook, but I love to go because it gives me different ways to engage my senses, different ways to learn, and it gives me a different experience than one I would give my own clients. So I would also suggest having a learning experience outside of your industry. So again, the 5 meta skills are feeling, seeing, dreaming, making, and learning. So again, as a recap, play into feeling by really standing frequently and with consistency in your customers' shoes. Really empathize with your employees by feeling vicariously what is it like to be an employee, not the leader of the company. Skill 2, seeing, really challenging yourself to understand how the parts influence each other, how the parts influence the whole, and how to push and pull each of these levers in your business so that you can really create the business that you want. Dreaming, how can you brainstorm? How can you really think through unconstrained ideas and really challenge yourself before you come up with a final idea? How can you create an idea that's as original as you can make it? Making, which is really inserting another process from I know this is going to work, so I'm going to do it, to I know this is going to work, let me prototype and test it a little bit, do it, and then iterate. And then lastly, learning. How can you put yourself in situations where you can better understand how you learn as the leader, how you like to learn, so that you can continue to improve how you run and lead your business. So here's my homework for you. My homework is this. If you could do anything for your customers, either to say thank you so much for being a customer, or I appreciate you, or to draw new customers, if you could do anything without constraint for time, money, resources, what would it be? And let yourself dream this very wild dream. And brainstorm, write it down. Before you edit yourself, before you cut yourself off, just put it all out there on the table. And then as you start to introduce constraints, let yourself morph some of your big dreams. Things that should be considered always are your brand values, brand-based values. And then you're going to have to consider the reality of the time that you have and the resources you have, but you may be surprised that some of your big dreams may morph into more attainable realities. So that's your homework to work on through next week. The other thing that I told you I would announce is I am hosting a retail retreat. I'm very excited. The retreat is a Rise. It's a 2-day retail retreat specifically for independent retailers that run brick and mortar businesses. And it's really designed to address the challenges of running a brick and mortar business, really of the multidisciplinary approaches to achieve profitability and sustainability. So that you can focus on the work that you love doing, so that you can focus on, the most gratifying work or the work of contributing to the community, whatever it is that you want to focus on, right? So I say get your profit house in order so that you can do the work that you love to do. So we're focusing on 4 areas. Area 1 is staff training, really emphasizing the behaviors most important to your brand so that you can sell more, right? So if you emphasize the behavior over the exact script, your team is going to become far more effective and develop significantly more meaningful relationships with your customers. We're also going to talk about how to, what you need to do to really understand how your customer shops, to really understand what influences their purchases, so that you can enhance your own in-store experience. The third thing we're going to do is talk about your business practices and your operational practices, and specifically have an eye on the ones that are a little disparate or a little disjointed to create a cohesive strategy. Really with the idea of, if you have a cohesive strategy, the money that you have, the resources that you have, the time that you have, the team that you have will in fact be better leveraged. And then number 4, really we're going to explore how you use your point of sale system and how to really get the most out of your point of sale system. Because if you're really getting the most out of your system, you will understand really how to increase gross profit, because you're going to be getting all the power under that hood. But you'll also know how to optimize your inventory. So that retreat happens here in Seattle on Thursday, April 27th and Friday, April 28th. You can read more about it by going to merchantmethod.com/arise. Until then, until I see you next week, I'm Chris Gio from Merchant Method. Thank you for watching Merchant Method Trend Reports. Dream big, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.